Every empire is built on a psychological foundation. To understand the man who engineered the greatest monopoly in human history, you cannot start at the oil wells. You must start with his father. William Avery Rockefeller was not a businessman. He was a con artist, a snake oil salesman who abandoned his family for months at a time, selling fake cures for cancer. William once proudly stated, "I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make them sharp." He taught his son John that the world was full of predators and prey. But while his father embraced chaos and deception, John despised it. John craved order. He craved control. He didn't want to hustle people on the street. He wanted to own the street itself. At the age of 16, John got a job as an assistant bookkeeper. He earned 50 cents a day. But to him, the ledger was not just a book of numbers. It was a holy text. He bought a small red book he called Ledger A, where he recorded every single penny he earned, spent, and gave away to charity. He realized early on that wealth is not created by taking wild risks. Wealth is created by understanding the math better than the man sitting across from you. He didn't just build a company. He built a mathematical machine designed to strangle every competitor in existence. He took an industry of gamblers and turned it into an algorithm. By the age of 40, he controlled 90% of the oil in the United States. Today, we open the vault on the efficiency protocol. How a quiet accountant used basic mathematics as a weapon of absolute domination. This is Codex Legacies. In 1859, the world changed forever. Oil was discovered in Titusville, Pennsylvania. It was a gold rush. Men from all over the country poured into the mud and filth, drilling frantically. It was an environment of pure, unadulterated chaos. Men were borrowing money at ruinous interest rates, buying land blindly, and praying to strike black gold. Some became millionaires overnight. Most went completely bankrupt. Young Rockefeller traveled to Pennsylvania to observe this phenomenon. Where others saw unlimited opportunity, John saw only inefficiency. He saw men pulling crude oil out of the ground, but crude oil was useless. It had to be refined into kerosene to be burned in lamps. Rockefeller made a masterstroke decision that would define his legacy. He refused to drill for oil. Why take the risk of digging a dry hole? Let the desperate gamblers take the risk. Let them fight in the mud. Rockefeller chose to control the refinement. He positioned himself directly in the middle of the supply chain. He became the toll booth. He knew that no matter who found the oil, they had to bring it to him to make it valuable. By controlling the refinery, he controlled the entire market without ever touching a drill. But to build a monopoly, you must first build a fortress. And Rockefeller's fortress was built on the obsessive elimination of waste. For John, inefficiency was not a business error, it was a sin. The oil industry was transporting its product in wooden barrels. Independent refiners were buying these barrels for $2.50 each. Rockefeller looked at the ledger. He found this unacceptable. He didn't negotiate for cheaper barrels. He completely eliminated the middleman. He purchased his own tracts of white oak timber. He built his own drying kilns. He bought his own wagons and horses to transport the wood. He hired his own coopers to build the barrels. He brought the cost down from $2.50 to 96 cents per barrel. To a normal businessman, that is a saving of $1.54. To Rockefeller, multiplying that by millions of barrels, it was the capital needed to conquer the world. There is a famous story that perfectly decodes his mind. He watched a machine soldering oil cans. He asked the manager, "How many drops of solder do you use on each can?" The manager replied, 40. Rockefeller asked them to try 38. It leaked. They tried 39. It held perfectly. 1 drop of solder. It saved the company $2,500 in its first year. While his competitors were busy throwing parties and buying mansions with their first profits, Rockefeller was reinvesting every single penny into cutting costs by fractions of a cent. He understood that in a commodity market, the man with the lowest baseline cost has the power of life and death over everyone else. But simply being efficient isn't enough to build a global monopoly. Efficiency keeps you alive. Leverage allows you to conquer. And this is where Rockefeller executed one of the most ruthless strategies in the history of capitalism. In the 1860s, the only way to transport oil out of Cleveland was by railroad. The railroads were run by ruthless tycoons like Cornelius Vanderbilt and Jay Gould. They were notorious for crushing businesses with high freight rates. But Rockefeller didn't fight them. He made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Because Rockefeller's company, Standard Oil, shipped a massive, predictable volume of kerosene every single day, he went to the railroad tycoons in secret. He promised to give them a guaranteed, steady flow of cargo, but in exchange, he demanded a massive discount, a secret rebate on his shipping costs. He forced the railroads to transport his oil for a fraction of what they charged his competitors. Suddenly, Standard Oil could sell its kerosene in New York cheaper than his rivals could even put it on a train in Ohio. It was an impossible mathematical advantage. But the Codex goes deeper. A simple discount wasn't enough for Rockefeller. He didn't just want to win. He wanted to eliminate the concept of competition entirely. He orchestrated a secret alliance called the South Improvement Company. He went back to the railroads with a new demand. He didn't just ask for a discount on his own oil. He demanded that the railroads pay him a portion of the shipping costs paid by his competitors. This was known as the drawback. Think about the sheer brutality of that math. Every time a rival shipped a barrel of oil, the railroad charged them $1, and then secretly handed 25 cents of that dollar directly to John D. Rockefeller. His competitors were literally financing his empire without even knowing it. The more they shipped, the richer Rockefeller got. It was an invisible tax, a financial strangulation. Armed with this absolute logistical advantage, Rockefeller unleashed what historians now call the Cleveland Massacre. In 1872, he decided it was time to clean up his home city of Cleveland. There were 26 rival refineries in the city. He didn't hire thugs. He didn't burn down their buildings. He used something much colder. He went to his rivals, one by one. He would sit in their offices, quiet, polite, wearing his dark suit, and he would open his books. He would show them his secret transportation rates. He would show them his exact cost of production. He let them look at the math, and the math told a terrifying story. Rockefeller could sell his oil below their cost of production indefinitely and still make a profit. He offered them a choice. Sell your company to me now for a fair price in Standard Oil stock, or fight me and face total annihilation. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a mathematical execution. He told them, "We will take your burdens. We will utilize your ability. We will give you a market." Within 39 days, Rockefeller bought 22 of his 26 competitors. They didn't surrender to a man. They surrendered to an algorithm. With Cleveland conquered, the blueprint scaled globally. But there was a problem. In the 19th century, state laws prevented a company incorporated in one state from owning property or stock in another. Standard Oil of Ohio couldn't legally own a refinery in New York or Pennsylvania. How do you build a national monopoly when the law explicitly forbids it? You create a ghost. Rockefeller's lawyers invented a completely new legal structure, the trust. Stockholders of dozens of different companies across the country handed their shares over to a board of 9 trustees headed by Rockefeller. In exchange, they received trust certificates that paid massive dividends. On paper, there was no single giant company violating state laws. There were just dozens of local companies. But in reality, those 9 men sitting in a boardroom at 26 Broadway in New York City dictated the price of oil for the entire planet. They operated in absolute secrecy. It was a shadow government controlling the lifeblood of the industrial age. But empires of this magnitude cannot remain in the shadows forever. The public grew furious. The journalists, led by Ida Tarbell, exposed the ruthless tactics, the secret rebates, and the crushing of independent businesses. The United States government finally intervened. In 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly and ordered it to be broken up into 34 separate companies. The public cheered. The politicians celebrated. They thought they had finally defeated John D. Rockefeller. They thought they had destroyed his empire. They were wrong. They simply didn't understand the math. When the company was broken up, the true value of its hidden assets was finally revealed to the stock market. The value of those 34 new companies, which included the predecessors of Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron, skyrocketed. Because Rockefeller still owned a quarter of all the shares in those new companies, his personal wealth exploded. The government's punishment actually made him the richest man in modern history. He became the world's first officially recognized billionaire, precisely because they tried to destroy him. History judges John D. Rockefeller as a robber baron, a tyrant of industry. But the Codex does not judge morality. It studies mechanics. The Rockefeller blueprint teaches us that true power is not loud. It doesn't need to shout. True power is quiet efficiency. It is the ability to position yourself at the exact bottleneck of an industry, eliminate waste down to the fraction of a cent, and use pure mathematics to eliminate variables. If you don't control the toll booth, you are just paying the toll. To decode more blueprints of the architects of history and apply their logic to the modern battlefield, subscribe to Codex Legacies. The vault will open again soon.